Our next speaker it will focus on food. As an Italian child and growing up Italian American, I always took food for granted. Good and plentiful food was just a fact of life for Italian Americans, and it was something that other people didn't have access to. They did things like eat American bread and that sort of thing. They were manja cakes. But and it's like the water to fish, as far as I'm concerned, food for in Italian American culture. But in the last 20 or 30 years, food and the sociology and psychology of food has become a very important area of interest. And Italian, it has been written about, and it's sort of flattering. Italians are, or non-Italians, are attracted to the mafiosi aspect of Italians, to Italian Americans, and they're attracted now to food and the wonderful food traditions of Italians and Italian Americans. So it's something positive. I'm more interested, though, in the stories about people in the family, their work, their organizations, their churches. But this is flashy. Anyhow, doing a wonderful job of relating food to culture is Carol Amendola Danca. Carol has a degree in nutrition, and she has written several books on one on the fine art of feeding children. That's something that a lot of us can relate to as a problem in our lives, is feeding our children and how we can learn from Italian culture. She's got a new book coming out called what? I don't have the title for it, but she'll tell us. Welcome, Carol Danca.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for welcoming me into this event. You know, Fred's closing comments this morning really hit home, and I've been thinking about it in between listening here, and it was about Little Italy. You know, it has two things. It has nostalgia and it has death. And I watched the Little Italy that I grew up in die over the time that I was growing up. And so I've never stopped loving the culture. Many people will hear me say that, you know, I did nothing to deserve it. I was born into it, and it's been it has been the most precious gift in my life. I've never stopped trying to either preserve it or communicate to others. And as a nutritionist, even being a nutritionist is connected to my culture. Because one day when I was in class at school, and I opened my lunch, the beautiful lunch my mother would make for me, the kids around me couldn't identify what I was eating. And that really sparked my interest in, you know, why do certain cultures eat differently? So anyhow, my first book, the title of it was Eat, Love, and Live. And it was a call to really reconnect to the gardens of our ancestors that, you know, our ancestors grew and ate and prepared and stayed pretty healthy for most of their life. And to do that as a way to get back to our own health. My second book, and by the way, I have a co-presenter, and she will be coming on at the end of my 10 minutes here. I'm going to watch myself and make sure I don't take too much time. But I'd like to share my screen so that I can show you. Okay, so the first slide is really a picture of the book, and what we're doing is really taking the idea of getting back to our culture even deeper. All the way back to childhood and maybe even in the womb, because what a child eats through his or her mother affects their health for the rest of their life, which we don't realize. So there's this big need to identify with the foods that have been given to us in our rich culture. Of course, the Italian culture is among the oldest, the richest in nutrients, the most studied, the most copied, and the most cited in all of scientific literature. So we have a rich culture, but what is happening is almost like the little Italies. It's becoming extinct. And it's becoming extinct to a great extent in the United States as foods and the way we eat just gradually has migrated over to the standard American diet, which we absolutely know today is the cause of many of the chronic illnesses that we suffer from and take medications for and end up not feeling well. So this started to happen even in Italy. Even in Italy, they began to see fast food and junk food coming into to the stores. And a gentleman named Carlo Petrini in 1986 started the slow food movement. And many of you might have heard that term, the slow food movement, in order to take back the culture, the food culture of Italians. So am I able to share my screen yet?
Yes,
You should be.
yes, Carol, you are, yes.
Okay, so I would like to show you a couple of pages from the book. Screen sharing, I'm clicking on screen share. Oh, here we go. It's a little delayed, but it's coming, I believe. Okay, so now you're seeing all my, there you go. So this is the cover of the book, and the title is Real Food for Infants and Toddlers. Let's start out right. I've been to many medical conferences, and one that really struck me had a research scientist that said, let's start treating heart disease 50 years before it happens, because it's too late by the time it happens. But we can start out right. And there's been a real compilation with this book. As a nutritionist, as an Italian American, I've been on this bandwagon for decades, but this time with this book, I have a compilation between myself, as you will see on the bottom line of the front cover. There's a contribution from Dr. Barbara Deal, who has been a pediatric cardiologist for 25 years at Northwestern University, and my good friend Raffaella Florio, who is really like a sister, who is from Italy, and she is going to come on just as soon as I'm done with a few slides and talk about her experience with food for her children. I'd like to say too that Raffaella's daughters have been wonderful with the help of marketing this book, and they put her on Instagram as Nonna Raffaella, and within 1 month, she has 1,000 followers on Instagram. And so we know that people are searching for this information. We're very excited about this book, and I cannot get a hard copy from the publisher so that we can get it on the market. So it's not yet on the market. So if you take a look, I don't know if you're seeing little slides on the side, so you might not be able to read everything. But chapter 1 is about culture, nutrition, and the standard American diet, and how big food has now marketed junk food to our children, to our grandchildren, wanting this food even before they can read because of the way it's done. So it's very important to instill this culture and these foods very closely after a child is born. And there's a way to do that. Raffaella will tell you about that. So the second chapter is written by the cardiologist. I could have presented the same scientific data, but I figured people might be tired of hearing me. Maybe I need some backup. And Dr. Deal has presented all the scientific evidence of what this food is doing to the children. And again, let me repeat, the Italian culture offers the richest, the most studied, the most copied in the world. So if we can get back to that and the real diet, everyone's going to be better. So what Raffaella has done is she has, I'm going to just try to switch to the next, she has compiled recipes that she fed to her children and recipes that are used in Italy. And here's one, minestrina. Babies are fed minestrina very early in their life. And if you can take a look at the ingredients, they're not difficult. They're not exotic. And this can be put together very easily and very quickly. And she makes these foods for her three grandsons, which you'll see some pictures. So the idea, again, of the book is to get it into the hands of new moms, grandmas, grandpas, caregivers, everyone that helps nourish a child, to show them how easy this can be. And this is real food. This is not food that's, you know, purchased in a box for a child. Now, that recipe that I just showed you is for a child up to about 8 or 9 months, as you can see on the top description. We move on to the next for foods for children that are a year old and up. And they take a look at this pasta with zucchini. It might look delicious to all of you in this meeting. It looks delicious to me. So the whole idea too is that there are no children's menus in Italy. I don't know how we can, well, I do know it was, we've marketed to children that they need a separate menu of some kind of nugget thing that isn't even really food, maybe some French fries, maybe a soft drink, and then the parents eat something else, which is, I don't know how we got there, but as a nutritionist, it makes me pretty crazy. All right, so this is one of Raffaella's little grandsons, and his name is Nico. It's never too early to get children involved. And, you know, I love this picture. I had to have this picture in the book. It's, you know, it shows Nico at the kitchen sink. He's in Italy at his grandmother's house. And you know what he's doing? He's washing greens. So they put him on a stool, they put him by the sink, he's washing greens, and they're going to have these greens for salad. So little Nico, at his age, has seen the food grown, he's felt it, he's touched it, he's helped prepare it, and he's eaten it. And that's how you build a food culture with a child. This is Lorenzo, her other little beautiful grandson. And Lorenzo's being introduced to the full spectrum of color of vegetables, how they feel, how they taste, what they look like. That's a picture of his father holding him. This is also in Italy. And it begins this relationship that children today don't have. They think of food comes from the grocery store or in a package or in a jar. Oh, so I don't have a picture, didn't put a picture of Marco in, but I'm going to turn this over now to Raffaella, and she is in the bottom right picture, in this picture. And as you can see, I love this picture because we met up with Raffaella, her daughter, her son-in-law, her husband, and Nico in Rome a little over a year ago, and we had a wonderful family dinner, which also just depicts everything that we have been talking about here. So Raffaella, would you like to take the screen now? Is it possible for her to have full view of the screen and just cut me out? I see she's sitting there. She's a beautiful lady sitting at her dining room table ready to talk to us. So
yeah, if you would stop the share, we'll be happy to switch over.
Okay. Oh, there she is.
Buongiorno. Good morning, and grazie Carolina to give me this great opportunity to talk about the food, the real food, the Mediterranean food, where I am so proud. I love it, and I want everybody to eat my food. So maybe we can have a big party at your house, Carolina. I'm coming.
Yeah.
We'll cook for everyone. We're all invited. So my name is Raffaella Florio. I was born and raised in Italy, in Pagani, Salerno. It's a town in the city side of the Amalfi Coast, where I was brought up, and the wonderful food. And after I get married, I moved to America with my husband. That he was already here. He came when he was a teenager. But my big problem when I came, it became the food. I wanted to have my bread. I wanted to have my olive oil. I wanted to have my veggie. And I didn't know where to buy. It was so hard for me to go get these wonderful things that I left in Italy. So little by little, I learned about places. I learned about the language. I didn't know how to speak a word of English. So, and I was pregnant 7 months. My firstborn, Francesca, was born. And I was nervous on what I'm gonna feed my baby, where I can find the fresh produce. Back then, we didn't have so many things like we have it now. So I discovered an open market outside in Boston, where they have, just like Italy, they have all fresh produce, a lot of stuff imported. And I was going shopping over there and buy all of my food, take it home, and start preparing food for my babies. And in the meantime, I found two beautiful women, friends, that I became friends with, the two sisters-in-law, Justine and Cheryl. They have each one of them 2 kids of each. And we started cooking and have lunch with all of the kids together. So when we did it, my friend, they left their own food and they start following me with all of the Mediterranean diet and with the food. So now they own children. They are same age of my daughters, and they have kids. So what happens with this book that we have with my recipes that I have it on my Instagram page. So they keep on calling and they preparing food for their own babies. And we are so proud of this because we introducing the real food to the babies, even with the allergies. That's very important, introducing the kids to fish, to nuts, to different type of fruits to see if they're gonna, develop some type of allergies. So far, my grandsons, I have 3 grandsons, they eat anything and everything it's all prepped by me and my 2 daughters, that they are good cook. And we don't buy anything that's in the box. I'm sorry, but we buy everything that's fresh. So, my mom, I have a mom in Italy that she's 88 years old. And my mom, she only has a problem because she's old, but she's in good health because she still prep all the food. She cooks for my brother every night. When my brother goes home, she still cooks for my brother. So our culture, it is all be on the table as a family and eating all together. And thanks to Carol, the anchor, she gave me this wonderful, wonderful opportunity to introduce this baby's food that's very important in the life of a person. Not to start a diet when we are 30 years old and eating a good food when we're 30, but we need to start eating good food when we just have our first spoon in our mouth. That's what it is. It's the first spoon that goes in your mouth. It has to be about the real food. So I hope everyone will like my book, will like my recipe. And Carol, she's great. I also want to say, Carol, she's the first person that I met in the United States back in 1980, in the 87, a couple of years after I moved here. And we just became like sisters. Even if we live so far, I am in Providence, Rhode Island, on the East Coast. So we visited many times. We visited, she comes here to visit me. I've been to Chicago, and we spend the time in Italy all the time. Yeah, I still have a house in Italy, so that which I go 2 times a year, and my grandkids, they've been there many times, so we spend the summers. Unfortunately, this year we're not able to go with the COVID, but we will go for Christmas. So grazie, thank you, and Carolina, thank you again.
Oh, Rafaela, thank you. I can't thank you enough for being part of this book. You bring the authenticity to the recipes. It's wonderful. And I was wondering too, if we could just show a quick snippet of Monica. I think one of her two daughters, Monica, is with Rafaela, and her two daughters have been, there she is, wonderful marketing. I mean, we've really got some energy behind this book because of Monica and Francesca. They're hooked into groups with like 1 million mothers, right? 1 million mother groups, right, Monica?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. And she didn't realize what a marketing genius she is, because she's doing posts and keeping this in front of people. And we've already connected with another childhood nutritionist, a pediatrician in Canada, that is going to help us with the book. And yeah, we really put our heart and soul and our love into it, and we hope it's going to be we're sure it's going to be well received. Thank you all for this time to be able to present.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Rafaela. This is Anna. I'm seeing lots of positive remarks in our chat. I do have one question from the chat. It asks, are your ideas in any way influenced by Ansel Keys, the Mediterranean diet? Ansel Keys lived for some time in Cilento coast.
Yeah, very familiar with the work of Ansel Keys. He's the one that began to write the scientific literature. Yes, he spent time in Cilento, and he, like the people right now in the blue zones, which I visited in Sardinia last November, were always fascinated as to why these Italians lived such good lives. They stayed healthy so long in life. So to just answer that question, Ansel Keys is probably he is the lead researcher in the whole Mediterranean diet. I believe it was in the early 50s. He went to Cilento. By the way, Rafaela's husband is from the Cilento region.
Yeah, we have a house there.
There.
Yeah.
How much more authentic can we get, okay?
We
Very
have a
good,
house.
very good.
Thank you very, very much to Carol and Rafaela. Thank you.
Grazie.
Hi, Dominic again. And a reminder that if anyone lives in Chicago or is in Chicago on any Wednesday when we don't have a pandemic, come over to the Casa Italia library, where it's a volunteer day. And we often have lunch about 12:30, and at 2:30 we have a break from lunch, and we have a lot of good food, and Lucio is our chef at the lunchtime, and I don't know if Lucio is still with us, but thanks to Lucio.